Hi everyone. I've been thinking about making this video for a little while now. I haven't really had the urge to do it because I really wanted to feel like I actually had something, to say, or I wanted to really have it just come out right. Um, and right now I'm looking. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I just saw this link about this bill that just got recently passed in Utah. Yeah, so basically, in Utah right now, let's see, there is a bill that has been passed that requires schools to teach abstinence only sex education. Additionally, both teachers and students would be prohibited from discussing contraception and homosexuality in the classroom. It was passed in the Senate by a vote of 19 to 10, and Utah's House approved the bill last month. Um, and that, which I just saw this evening, was really what prompted me to just sit down and say a few words. It really distresses me as a human being and as a parent of two children that we are having the kinds of discussions these days about whether or not contraception or homosexuality or women's rights should be, dictated by our government. It distresses me as a human being, for one thing, because I believe in human rights. I'm not even going to get into the sectionalization and differentialities between gay and women's rights because to me, they fall both under human rights because gay men and lesbian women are human beings, and women are human beings as well, despite what most conservatives might try and pass in legislation. Um, it's a very distressing thing because I feel like these rights are up for grabs and they're being dictated by people who do not understand what these rights mean. They're being dictated by people who will never have to fear these rights being taken away from them. You have a bunch of straight white men taking away or trying to take away or discussing the rights of gay men, discussing the rights of women, women's bodies. What man will ever understand what a woman's body goes through? Even, I mean, just on a pure visceral physical level, what it's like to experience life in a female body is radically different than what it is in a man's body, and therefore, as a man, we will never understand in just that physical response, that primal feeling, we will never understand what it means to be a woman. And yet, we have panels made completely of men discussing how or whether or not companies should allow insurance coverage for contraception for women for the birth control pill. Like I don't understand how that even makes sense. And we're talking about whether or not gay marriage should be allowed. But the people who are against gay marriage will never ever have to fear their right to get married being taken away, or anybody discussing whether or not it's okay for them to get married. They'll never have to go through that. They'll they'll never have to fight for it. It's just given to them. Whether it's because they believe it is a religious right, or it's because it is a right based on, I don't know, man and woman are supposed to be together. Whatever reason it is that they feel that they are granted the right of being married naturally, quote unquote, in bunny ears, they will never have to worry about having that taken away from them or having to worry about standing up and saying, this is something that I want. I want to have this. let me have, they don't have to ask permission, they don't have to vote on it. These people who want to take away all of these rights, these human beings' rights, are people who will never have to experience what it would be like without those rights. Now, granted, there are, some women talking about this contraception, and there are some women who speak on the subject of gay and lesbian rights and the right to marriage and what forth. So it's not just straight white men. There are women in the Senate. There are women out there who are voting on these things. But I believe it says something when it gets to the degree um, of there being an all-male panel discussing whether or not women's contraception should be allowed by medical insurance, by corporate insurance covering that. I feel like we are in some kind of weird, strange twilight zone, and it suddenly life has turned backwards. Like, I just don't understand it. If for some reason my son came to me in the future and said, "Dad, I'm gay," I don't ever want to have to feel worried that he would not be able to experience the same rights and freedoms that every other boy or man his age gets to experience, simply for the fact that he prefers men. And I don't want to have to worry about my daughter in the future, her rights, or her ability to, let's say, she gets pregnant someday, she doesn't want to keep the baby. Happens early, she wants to go get an abortion. I don't ever want to have to worry about that for her. Because the simple truth is that getting an abortion is not an easy decision. You don't just snap your fingers or flip a coin and say, well, heads, I'll keep the baby, tails, I'll get an abortion. It's not an easy thing. And as a man, I'll never understand that experience or that decision. So it confuses me how any man can say we cannot allow abortion because you'll never understand what it's like for a woman to have to make that decision. And it's not like contraception is to blame for it. Contraception is there to try and prevent these kinds of decisions from having to be made. If you don't want to have a baby, try using contraception. Okay. And even that is not always foolproof. You still have to be careful and you still have to know what you're doing. Anyone can have an accident. I just don't get it. I just don't understand why common sense is not common any longer. You know? Perhaps it's just the differences between an older generation and a newer one. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be 30 years old this year. I don't know what the generation gap has anything to do with anything in this sort of instance. It just seems to me that when you say human beings cannot have rights simply based on their gender or their sexual preference, that there is something wrong with the way that we're deciding things. Not just in this country, but in this world. Although being an American, I can really only speak for my country. Um, yeah, video is a little long. It's just a little rant. I don't have facts and spreadsheets in front of me, so I can't go and cite, well, this and that and that and this. But you look at, pardon the expression, but if you look at an idiotic fucktard like Rick Santorum, who says, you know, that if one of his daughters came to him and told him that she was pregnant and had gotten pregnant because she'd been raped, instead of saying that she could get an abortion and supporting her in that, he would say to make the best of a bad situation to accept the gift that God has given her. That is almost a direct quote, it's a paraphrase, and that is mind boggling. I feel like there is this huge thing where we are slowly sandwiching religious beliefs and political decision making into one process when there is a very clear separation between church and state. And religion is a very personal decision. It is not an easy thing to follow. It is not an easy way of life because you have to follow a strict code. You have to adhere to higher standards than most people do. It's not better, it's not worse. It's just not average, ordinary, everyday Americans. A lot of people say that they have spiritual beliefs and thoughts, but that does not mean that they adhere to the same religion. These the separation of church and state is there for a reason. You know, the pilgrims came here fleeing religious persecution, um, because like in Britain it was just indoctrinated. Everything was run. The church was basically run through the government, and I don't know. No, I'm not gonna try and delve into a history lesson, or I'll just misquote something, or I'll be, oh, I got that one wrong. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You would think that human rights would be really easy in this day and age. I just feel like we've just taken this massive step backwards, 50 years back, and somehow are just all screwing it up. Anyways, I hope that this has been, I don't know, something. This is just my rant. I just wanted to say it because if you don't say it, if you don't vote on it, if you don't go to legislation and go, hey, I don't think this is right what we're doing, well, then nothing will change for the better. Certainly can't get any worse, or can it? That's all I got.